Good morning and welcome to day 2 of Education Summit. We're a little lighter in the audience. It must have been a really great Summit Awards last night. Okay, since we gave you homework yesterday, who went to the campground and built their agent? Come on, who were good students? All right, we have work to do today. All right, I am thrilled and honored to be able to talk to 3 university leaders today. So I'd love to be joined by Melek Khoury, Mark Milliron, and Kate Corrigan. Come on out. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. The double Ks are anchoring Melek and Mark, too. All right. Well, thank you all for being here very much. When we met a couple of weeks ago, we had talked about belonging and connection and well-being. And as each of you shared with me, actually this theme of purpose came out. So I'd love to talk about fostering a sense of belonging among students, particularly amongst the different compositions of your student bodies. It's pretty important. I think the audience would love to hear about. But talk a little bit about, if you will, how you're thinking about well-being and purpose as it relates to academic success and student retention and the overall student. So maybe we could start, Mark, with you.
Yeah, I'm glad to. First of all, thank you for joining this conversation, and thank you for that question, because I think one of the most important things we have to do in the world of education is take a beat to think about who our students are. So do me a favor real quick, everybody close your eyes, just real quick, close your eyes. Picture a college student in your head. Look them up and down, top to bottom, picture that college student. Now open your eyes. How many of you thought of a 36-year-old woman with 2 kids working full-time? How many of you thought of a construction worker? How many of you thought of a deployed soldier? What did most of you think of when I said that? Most of you thought of an 18 to 20-year-old on campus with a backpack, right? That's like the dominant model that comes in your head. The living on campus, going full-time, not working student population in the United States is about 20% of higher education. The vast majority of higher education is very distinct. And at National University, 100% of our students, we serve about 50,000 degree-seeking students a year, about a third doctorate, third master's, third bachelor's. 100% of our students are non-traditional working and military students. So for us, getting to know who our students are and making sure that they know we know them and that they have a sense of belonging and connection is a really big deal. We often call our students Anders because they're parents and students, employees and students, deployed and students, and we have to meet them in their ands and kind of take them where they're going to need to go. So for us, the kinds of tools that Salesforce provides are imperative because they actually help us develop some wisdom about what works and what doesn't for different kinds of students and not fall into the trap of one size fits all. Because I think often in the world of education, people create these one size fits all policies, practices, programs, and they're predominantly focused on right from high school students, who we love, by the way. We think if we always say, if you're an 18-year-old who wants an on-campus experience with climbing walls and residence halls, for the love of God, don't come to National. There are other places you can go, but if you want a flexible model in particular for your graduate degrees, that's the kind of thing that we do later in life. So for us, the belonging question is imperative, and we actually train our folks deeply in understanding who we serve, help them understand the Ander population, and in particular the military population. Half of our undergraduate population is active duty or veteran or spouse dependent. And so we actually do a training program called Psych Armor, which is wonderful. I encourage you all to try to it's actually a product you can pull together, but it actually helps your team get ready and to understand military culture.
That's fantastic. And Kate, your population is very different. You shared with us yesterday greater than 50% first gen.
Absolutely. So UNLV, as I said yesterday, is a special place. More than 50% of our students are first in their family to attend college, right? And so they come without the benefit of having family members who can help prepare them for what to expect and sort of translate that hidden curriculum that we know exists on campuses, right? We also are a majority minority, and a very high percentage of our students are Pell eligible. And so belongingness is core to what we do. If our students come and the imposter syndrome takes over, they are going to leave and they're not going to be successful. And our mission is for them to be uplifted and to retain, progress, and complete career ready in a timely manner. And so belongingness is the secret to that. And so for us, we think about it, I think, in three ways quickly. One is, sort of the philosophy that undergirds belongingness. And my favorite quick reference is the Relationship Rich Education book. Many of you probably know it, Leo Felton. And it's a great book that's premised on the very simple concept that relationships make people feel at home and welcome and help our students persist. And relationship building is free, right? We're a campus full of people. And so with that notion, then, as you noted, programs are important, but it can't be one size fits all. So then we have a whole series of programs for different groups of students. One of the new ones we call Rebel Ready Week. It is a week-long, completely free onboarding week where students who are starting at UNLV come and they have a week of a conference-like experience. And it's a level-setting week, right? So students who know what to expect, they come and they learn more about our campus and they make friends and build relationships. But students who are first-gen or don't know what to expect or maybe aren't fully prepared, we give them the tools, the language, the campus map, the relationships that week to help launch them more successfully and to level set before that first day of classes, right? And so we have programs like that all the time. All the way across the student life cycle. But the last thing I'll say is the irony is, students don't often raise their hand and find those programs. They don't seek them out and participate if they don't feel like they belong. So ironically, to engage in the belonging programs, you have to feel like you belong at least a little bit. So the question becomes, how do you do that? And I would say the answer to that is in part what we do with our Salesforce platform, right? Which is we use Marketing Cloud to reach out to students from first, application through admission and Rebel Ready Week and in an ongoing way to reach out and customize and personalize their experience so that they feel like they belong and to share information with them to get them to engage. And when they feel like they belong and they engage, we can retain them and keep them.
Yeah, yes, and that really quick.
Absolutely.
Because the whole notion, if you develop these amazing programs for first generation, low income students, if you make them optional, the students who end up coming are the students who don't need it. Right? And so you've got to figure out policy and practice strategies to make it more likely that the students who actually need the resource get the resource. And that can be with nudging, that can be with outreach, that can be with a personal connection around it. We do something called the dissertation boot camp because our students, in this country, there are more ABDs than PhDs, all but dissertations. And most of the people who leave do not leave because of academics. They leave because of life and logistics and psychosocial issues. So for us, one of the things we do early in the graduate program are these live dissertation boot camps where they all come together and they learn everything about the dissertation process to demystify it. Because for many, it is a Darwinian, horrible experience in general in higher ed, and we want to demystify it and pull them together and help them understand how to walk through that process from day one. And it has made all the difference. You think, well, as doctoral students, they wouldn't need it. Oh, they absolutely need it because many of them are the first in their family to ever get any degree, much less a doctoral degree. So part of it is, again, helping. And what's funny is the first thing that they say when they get into those programs is, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to be the only one that was 45. I was the only one that was 38. And they suddenly see a whole bunch of people who are like them, and it's wonderfully settling.
Yeah, that's great. Malik, your population is even more different.
Yeah, I mean, to post on what my colleagues said and not repeat everything they say, I agree with everything that they said and more. I think where we are also trying to figure out, because our students are very much, adults from all over the country, all 50 states, 22 countries. We try to help them by creating online resources for them. We are finding more and more students are actually more comfortable starting with talking to an agent, starting to talk to basically technology before they get to a human. But we always have a human there ready for them. And so one of the things that we've been trying to do into supporting our students is have a single point of contact with the university. So there is no go talk to registrar, go talk to financial aid, go talk to this. You talk to one person, and that person is your guide. So that student who's a working mom, the third daughter of a Hispanic family working in a bodega, because how can they restructure their time in the classroom, their time away, so that we minimize the stress of schedule, the stress of uncertainty? The other thing that we are beginning to find is that unlike the traditional student who is looking for that sense of belonging in a very traditional manner, housing, athletics and the like, a lot of our students actually already come from communities that are thriving. And so we are looking into how do you help a student belong where they are, become members of society where they are at home. Kind of take this idea of let's not create a fake community for them to belong in because we're trying to get them to be into a unity community, but give them that option and say, how can we resource you so that whether it's at your church, at your mosque, at your community center, at the place where you work, within your family, we are your guide on the side because you already have a community. Everybody is from somewhere. A lot of residential folks talk about the sense of place. Everybody is from somewhere where they have a sense of place. So how do we empower them? How do we amplify them so that as a Unity student, as a Unity graduate, they've got the resources that they need from all over the country, hopefully someday all over the world, to create community where they are, because then they get to have a window into the world.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love it.
Well, ironically, we've been talking a lot about AI, and I heard, Kate, you said yesterday the cheating fear of that, but now also, Melik, you talk about the way to connect, or the agent's actually a really great way to connect. Interestingly, there's a divide. No surprise, right? But 57% of respondents to a recent survey put out by EDUCAUSE said, 49% of folks in 2024 thought AI would be a strategic priority. Training for faculty, 63%, training for staff, 56%. That has continued to evolve. So it's interesting to say I need this in-person belonging or some connection. I've got a willingness to converse with an agent, interact with an agent, and yet there's still this divide. So as you think about how you're going to leverage AI with your students and helping them drive success, how would you do that? And maybe we'll start in reverse this time, Melik. Yes?
What is AI again? No.
What's this AI?
Yeah, I think that the construct of AI right now is still being understood by higher education and academia. I think we still see it as a tool. I think a lot of folks have really looked at it as, is it cheating? Is it a tool like Excel? Or is it something that we can use? And I think what AI is going to do to higher education is completely transform the very nature of our structure, the very nature of our learning. Because what AI can do that no technology until now can do is it can act independently. At some point, generative AI will have independent action, whether we agree with it or not. So we have got to figure out how to create digital twins of our employees. How do we create differentiated avenues for our students so they can engage with the best minds of the world through a reconstruction with AI, knowing that it's only a matter of time that AI, we've already started seeing that with OpenAI, if you read any of the work of Ethan Mollick and others, where they're beginning to create their own large language models independent of the human construct. It really is a black box. So how do we start to look at this as an independent agent that can become a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week guide for our students, so that regardless of where they are, whether they need someone to talk to, whether they are looking for help with their math homework, whether they have a friend in another country where there's a language barrier, whether it's integrating ghosts in the learning management system for them to interact. Imagine a theater student being able to have a wonderful conversation with Nathan Lane. I mean, how awesome would that be, right? So the idea is that AI is basically right now what we struggle with as a human system, if you will, is the lack of imagination about how it can help us. And so for me, I see AI as a guide on the side that basically amplifies our employees' ability to best support our students, takes away, I will say in 3 years, all rote functions that your employees hate to do, can help with research, can help with care. Right now, at Unity, with what little we've done with AI, we are seeing students engaging with autonomous conversations. If any of you have never used Pi, it's a really cute app where you just have a conversation with somebody, just because somebody to talk to. We have found, and I was talking to a few faculty members at Wharton, that people, not just students, who chat with these AI agents online are more likely to de-escalate some of their stress than waiting to get into an actual person. And these learning models haven't even started to focus on mental health seriously and the like. This is just generic AI. So for us, I think you can fear AI, you can call it cheating, but I remembered when math professors used to strike about the use of a calculator. I say, embrace it, change the way you assess. AI won't replace our employees. Employees who don't use AI will be replaced over the next 5 years, but it can be an amplification. It can help your employees, it can help your alums, it can help your students, and it can help you scale. The question is, don't treat it like a machine. Treat it like a new employee that needs to learn, and it will have a personality. And I think that's the approach to take. And I will have to end by saying we are an environmental science institution, so you can imagine the phone calls that I'm getting about how dare we discuss and lean into AI, especially with the construct of the energy consumption that AI uses. And my answer is, I mean, AI is already doing fantastic work in research. It is doing excellent work in trying to figure out even the solutions in climate change. And my hope, and this is a dream, is that right now renewable energy has not caught up with the demand that we as humans have in order to basically generate the power that we need. And there's a lot of conversation about going back to fossil. And so the construct of AI's insatiable need for energy is what I'm hoping will lean into what are the alternatives for carbon-free energy in the future so that we can grow AI, create the data farms. And we think that one of the bridge energy, if you will, is actually nuclear energy. It is carbon-free. SMRs, small mobile reactors, are growing and are very safe. And it could be just what we need in order to bridge the gap between renewable energy that is coming up and not going back into fossil. And who better be at the forefront of the application of artificial intelligence in the age of education and research than environmental science institution? So I choose not to be a character in M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. I choose to be in the forefront of environmental research and AI and its impact on energy. And who better than environmentally conscious students to do that research, to do that work, to experience it? Because somebody who has experience with AI is more likely to solve a problem than somebody who looks at it as the monster behind, the monster in the woods. So that's my perspective on this.
That's fantastic. I'm not sure, Mark or Kate, who wants to follow that.
I've got my thing, but go.
Okay, well, I would just, first, I completely, 100% agree with everything Melik just said. I will say, one of the things you said near the end there was that you choose to be at the forefront of AI. And so I think we either all make the choice to be at the forefront of AI or we will be left behind. There is no in-between in this transformative moment, in my opinion, right? And so when, the remarkable thing about the EDUCAUSE study is how many campuses said that AI is not a strategic priority. So that stunned me more than the number that said it is, right? If AI isn't a strategic priority for all of us, I think we're missing something. So there's two ways to think, I would say, about AI on campuses. One is the learning environment, right? So on college campuses or in education, it's our job to prepare the next generation of thinkers, right? The next generation of doers and innovators in every field of study, right? Let that sit for a minute. Every field is going to be transformed by AI. And so our responsibility is to figure out ways to train on AI, to embed AI into curriculum, not just in computer science or management information systems or any of the obvious choices, but in every discipline we offer, right? I challenge you to think of a discipline that won't be touched by or impacted by AI and that the future workforce won't have to engage with AI.
Yeah.
Can you think of one? I haven't yet, right? And so that means that fundamentally what we do has to embrace AI at an educational and research level, at a career preparation and workforce pipeline level, in all of those ways. But then the other piece of AI is just as fundamentally important. So I don't know, maybe you all have heard that it's a tough moment in higher education, right? Many of us work in states where funding is frozen or declining. Federal support for education, I understand the Department of Ed may or may not be open today. Financing education is an existential crisis. If we can't fund our students and fund our campuses, we can't exist. And I would argue that education in general, and higher education in particular, is the most transformative force for good in our society. I don't want physicians or engineers or journalists or even politicians who haven't been educated and trained to think critically, right? To ask big questions and solve problems and to use science to come to conclusions based on facts. I think these things matter. And so how does AI help us do that? AI can help us stabilize our financial model. It can help us scale up on enrollment, as I think probably everyone in the room aspires to do. We certainly do. Without having to invest a lot of new resources in new people. So, Malik, you mentioned this as well. And so I often think, how many of you feel like you're too busy sometimes? Familiar, maybe a little? And how many of you have said something along the lines of, oh my God, I need a clone, right? I know I say it, I want a cloning machine. And I want my team to have clones, frankly. And so AI can be that clone, right? It can take away the mundane work. It can take away lots of the repetitive work. It can even take away some of the thought work and first draft writing work. There's so much it can do. And so right now we have well over 100 folks on our campus in AI boot camps this year and building communities of practice to train other colleagues next year. And we have one group doing AI in research, one group doing AI in the classroom and in teaching and program development, and one group looking at how we can use AI in our administrative offices. And this is where our partnership, again, with Salesforce comes in, is Agentforce is going to offer us this opportunity to meet students where they are 24/7 and provide answers and information that they need to feel like they belong and to answer their questions and to be able to retain and progress and complete. And ultimately, that's the business we're in. Yeah. So I think AI is here to stay. It's our new partner, and the Forefront is the only place to be.
Yeah, and I'll just say three things related to this. One, higher education is constantly, we as leaders are constantly managing these transitions from novel to normal with technology. I swear I spent the first 7 years of my career from 95 until 2002 doing group therapy around higher education around the internet. Because back in 1995, if you look at the League for Innovation in the Community College, EDUCOM, and CAUSE, because EDUCAUSE didn't exist yet, every single survey basically said that the internet was going to be a niche thing for engineering and for X and Y. None of them had the foresight to say this is going to be one of the core infrastructures for higher education for the next 20, 30 years. And go all the way back to electricity in the early 1900s, nobody would have thought, hey, that's going to transform education because now you can actually go to school at night, right? Things like that. Infrastructures change. I would argue AI is another one of those infrastructures, and we're in another one of those. By the way, they're not alone. I actually think virtual reality, XR, AR is part of that mix. And we should be thinking about that and robotics. To me, AI, XR, robotics are the three infrastructures that are going to be, if you haven't seen the impact of humanoid robots, it's pretty crazy in terms of what that's going to play out. We're going to have more robots in function in the United States than there are cars in the United States within the next 10 years. So for us, it's figuring out what this novel to normal transition is going to look like. Secondly, you hit on it exactly right, which is, what are your conversations in higher education? I think it's really simple. Make sure at your institutions you are thinking about AI in the terms of about, with, and beyond. Like, help your students learn about AI, which means I don't care what discipline you're in, you should be thinking about that program. What are the AI tools that student needs in criminal justice, in healthcare, in education, because there are distinct AI tools in each of those areas, and your people have to be thinking about it. You are not preparing students for the world as it is if you are not preparing them with AI tools. That's full stop. Secondly, learn with AI, which is how can we use people like Salesforce and others to integrate AI into how we work with our students, because we can help them learn well, finish strong, launch effectively with these better tools if we do it. But one of my biggest things in the learn with side is use AI to make the human moments precious. Like, how can you use AI to make sure that you are kind of, in some ways, disintermediating all the kind of like functional side things that students have to do, whether it's financial aid or scheduling or this or that, so that the deep human conversations can happen the right way with people. So if you can use that technology to make human moments precious, really good things can happen. And then the beyond AI is, remember, education is going to need to be there for the good, bad, and ugly, ethical implications, all that kind of stuff. Somebody has to do the algorithmic justice work with AI and kind of understand where it comes from, which is a really, really big deal. I think the final thing I would say around this is we absolutely have to make sure we are committed to putting AI on purpose, right? And our purposes are distinct. So just as I said in the very beginning, if you are a traditional on-campus, right from high school student, going to a very traditional institution, the way they use AI might be differently than how we use AI, because we have to be very different and flexible in how we're trying to build the connection for us. So you've got to figure out what is the purpose, how you want to put it on purpose for your institution. And part of it's knowing who you are and knowing who you serve. I'm a big believer, at National University, we train everybody in design thinking. And design thinking begins with empathy. And empathy means deep understanding of the people that you serve. So we're crystal clear. We have our theory of change, which is that for the non-traditional working and military students we serve, our goal is to use next generation education wrapped in whole human support aimed at value-rich education. That is our recipe to do great things with that student population. The recipe other institutions have might be different, but part of our next generation pillar is absolutely AI and key infrastructure players like Salesforce and others.
Thank you. And I want to say again, thank you all for being here. Kate, you just said that it is a challenging time for education. And the leadership that you've had to demonstrate over the last, even just several years, that we've had a pandemic. We've had a pretty challenging environment right now with funding. And your motivations, your own personal motivations that you bring to your leadership style are so critically important. And Kate, I think I want to start with you on this one. Even just being here for you is pretty monumental this week with some change that's affecting you. But you certainly demonstrated what leadership and resilience has looked like in time of crisis at the macro level, but also at the school level. How do you maintain composure and persevere in those high pressure situations while also maintaining stability for those 30,000 students and helping drive their success?
Well, thank you for asking that, Kelly, and thank you for having me here. I'm getting through because you have a wonderful hair and makeup team in the back. That helps. So this week it has been a little bit unusual. So what Kelly's referring to, I think, is I am not a president. I'm only playing one here on the Salesforce stage. Our president resigned about 9 days ago, fairly abruptly, and so our provost has stepped into the officer in charge role, and I'm officer in charge of the provost's office, and so it is one of those moments that you've all been there. Transitions happen in higher education and sometimes abruptly. And so, these are moments where we are all prepared. We all do our jobs the best that we can every day. And you build up skills and relationships with your team. And when these moments happen, you lean in and you're ready to go. And I'm sure all of you would do the same as you need to step up. I would say, though, the moment that really sort of helped me crystallize my leadership was, the crisis that we faced in December of 23. On December 6th of 2023, we had an active shooter at UNLV, and he shot 4 faculty members, 3 were deceased, 1 was critically wounded, and our police department responded instantaneously, 78 seconds after the first call, and incapacitated our attacker. And so it was a terrible tragedy, and until you go through a moment like that on your campus, you don't really know what that's like, and I hope you never do. If you've not experienced that, my greatest wish for you is that you don't. But I will say it puts everything else in stark perspective, right? And since then, I will say I worry a lot less about all the little things day to day that we can get, wrapped up in or spun up about, because, really those moments crystallize what the worst moments that we face, right? But I will say, and I nod to the leadership team who are in the room back on campus. My provost was in China at that point, and so I stepped in for him at that moment as well. And he came back quickly, and the team pulled together as you must do in those moments. But what was really remarkable to me, I have two big takeaways. One, I don't know about you all, but we did a lot of tabletop exercises and preparations for crises and emergencies. But they're all very high level and generic, right? And what we don't ever get into is the nitty gritty of what do you actually do in those first minutes and hours and days. Like weeks seem like forever away. It's really the minutes, And so coming out of that, I really feel like one of the gaps we have in higher education is I think we need more emergency training for academic affairs during emergencies. We all know run, hide, fight. We all know the sort of high-level generic. What we don't know is what's that first message to students? How do you talk to parents? How do you set up the reunification site? All of the details of all of the things. At what point do you put students back in the dorms and under what circumstances? How do you feed everyone that night? Where do you put people? All of the things. And so, I feel like we need better playbooks, frankly. And I gave a presentation at the WICHE conference last year on that. And, I really think there's some good work we can do together in that space in a preventative kind of way. And I think that's critical for leaders. But the second thing is the success story. So, right, out of every challenge, you have to find the sunshine and the light. And we did. We have an amazing team. And that team popped into action, immediately when the crisis started. We pulled together the right people. And we made a series of decisions in those hours and days and first 2 weeks that resulted in our highest retention from fall to spring ever, and remarkable enrollment growth. So more than 5% enrollment growth that semester on our campus, about 3% for undergraduates, more than 9% for our graduate students, in a moment when we were sure that we were going to lose students. And this is, let me be perfectly clear, this is not about numbers and money and enrollment, right? This is about those students trusted in us enough to come back a couple of weeks later, right? And they were okay with how we ended the semester. Our attack happened during finals week, right? So we had 2 days left in the semester. So how do you wrap up grades? How do you do all of that? But we made a series of changes, right? Students no longer had any late fees, not for registration, not for late payment. I called the library, I called parking, I called our colleagues at the health center and said, all those past due balances that you're holding back enrollment on, they're gone. We're not doing that. And everybody said, okay, all right, in this moment, we'll do it. Our enrollment team came up with a whole list of things that we could do differently for our students. And there were things we always had wished to do. We always wanted to try them to promote belongingness and support our students. And in this moment, the provost and president said, go for it. And we did as a campus, and it worked. Our students came back, and they persisted. And for us, that's the success story that we cling to.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and your campus did as well. I think some of us who sit on the fringes of education will maybe forget how much you were shaping the future, and we think about that and shaping the future of the students. That was a lot of shaping the future for all of us in the way you talked about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melik, I'm going to shift to you and shift from that a little bit. But earlier this year, you wrote an article on leadership. I'm going to quote you. Here's the truth I wish someone had told me earlier. There's no universal right way to lead. Can you tell us more about how and why you found this to be true and how it's shaped your leadership at Unity?
Sure. I've been lucky enough to have been reporting to a number of very, very successful presidents. And I've also been able to be the person in the room that no one sees. The invisibility has power, where you are supporting a president, so people say things in front of you they wouldn't say if they thought you had any power. So I was able to see what people say on the record and what people say when you leave the room. And what I realized is that we in academia have created this pageantry of what leadership is that allows us to say nothing, be nothing, and do nothing. Otherwise, the pen really is mightier than the sword. So every comment, every decision, every brave act, every move you make That sounds like a Sting song. I'm not going into it. They are watching you, and you are constantly being put into a box that you cannot move from. So for me, what I found out is there was no right way to lead. Whether you are a hands-on person who enjoys scenario planning like I do, where my team has to suffer through a scenario plan of what if once a quarter about anything so that they can learn the muscle of what to do when things happen, all the way to how you make a decision, how you talk, how you act. And so for me, what I realized is that there was this idea of what a presidency is, and it was truly a delicate a porcelain doll that needs to be put on a stage, and if you move, it breaks. And that was free. And so I talked to my team, I talked to everyone, lean into who you are, be unapologetic for it, be empathetic, but at the same time, make it okay for your teams, for your employees, for yourself, to be yourself and act in such a manner that is authentic. I know that word is overused, that is real. I've chosen radical transparency. People have asked me questions and they brace themselves because I'm going to tell them everything. Like, if you don't want to know, don't ask me. Never have a conversation about someone or a unit or a department in a meeting if they're not present. And if you don't have the conviction to make a decision, no committee is going to have the conviction for you. And when the knives come out, make sure that when you look in the mirror, you have nothing to hide. Because the cover-up or the attempted cover-up or the flinching because, oh my God, where there is smoke, there is fire, is going to hurt your leadership more than anything that you can do. So be yourself, be transparent, be real, understand you will make mistakes. And if you are lucky, your decisions will only upset 49% of people. And if it upsets 62, how do you live with yourself? And I will tell you, it's not about innovation. It's not about brilliance. The three things that I use that I think have gotten me to become the second longest serving president in the state of Maine, everybody lost on that bingo card. Well, one, I am more consistent than I am innovative.
Yeah.
People need to know that you will give the same answer to two different people.
100%.
Two, if you don't know, just say you don't know. And don't try to make something up because you think you are in a position of power. And if you make someone feel like they belong in the room, whether they like you or not, they are more likely to see you as the same species and work with you. So always try to see their perspective. And you don't have to compromise to do that. So for me, it's really about, be yourself no matter what they say.
No matter what. I'm going to have that song stuck in my head for the rest of the day, though. Mark, you talked about this. In addition to serving 50,000 students across 50 states and 20 countries, you also sit on boards of many colleges and other educational organizations. How has that involvement helped you drive student and institutional success back at National?
I'm coming into my fourth decade of troublemaking in the world of education. Hopefully it's good troublemaking. And I've been blessed to work in a lot of different sectors, whether it's in education, consulting, working in government, working in foundations. And what the red thread in all the roles has been a laser focus on how do we pull the levers in whatever sector it is to help more and more diverse students be more successful than ever before on these pathways. And that's been a very consistent commitment, is how we can do it. And one of the things I've learned is that you can, I'm a big believer in the CASE method. CASE stands for copy and steal everything. Like, there are great ideas out there and you got to figure out how you integrate them and connect them in. And it also, by the way, makes you a wonderful appreciative inquiry person. Like, we're like, wow, tell me more about that. And you can, because I'm a big believer in what Ken Robinson always talked about for years. Like, creativity is not about new things, it's about combining existing things. So learning how to pull that together becomes a really big deal. So for me, the ability to be connected in lots of different sectors, whether it's being on boards or being in different sectors, is pulling that information together. If you haven't read the book Range by Dan Epstein, absolutely worth the read, especially if you're a champion of liberal arts in the world of education. But he talks about analogy-based thinking and being in different sectors and being able to pull those things together. And he kind of blows up the 10,000-hour rule and the hyper-specialization thing, which is kind of great. But it does make you think about how it comes together. But I'm going to boil all that down to like one thing in particular. is I don't care about what sector I've been in. What I've really seen, and it comes to the leadership things you were talking about and you were talking about, is I see a lot of people right now who are just absolutely desperate to, one, they want to belong somewhere. They want to be a part of a high-performing team. They really want to be on the team and be connected. And in their heart of hearts, they talk tough. They might be cynical. They might be here, but there's a longing. They want to be a part of something. And secondly, they want to believe. They want to believe in something, because so many things that we really believe in we've lost faith in. We've been disappointed, desperately disappointed and heartbroken by institutions, by individuals. In the last 30 years, it's just been this cascade of like, oh my gosh, them? Right? We just like one after the other. And I just think people are desperate to believe in something. And one of the things I love about the work we do at National, and obviously the work you do at your institutions, is we are about helping students learn well, finish strong, and launch effectively and make a difference. And if we can do this well, that is something that is noble work, right? And we can use whatever tool necessary to help make that more likely. Boy, that's something to believe in. But that means if you want those folks to belong and then to believe, they got to let go and they got to trust and they got to lean in and take feedback. That, you know what that means? That means that we have to be worthy of that. And what I mean by that is like that consistency, that connection, that making sure that we create that safe place and that we are leading in a way towards that goal. And by the way, sometimes that means telling hard truths. Like, we are not good at this, and we have got to get better. What can we do? Get me the data. I'm a big believer in get grounded, get real, get going. Figure out your mission, vision, values, and your direction. Get really hardcore data. Understand where you're terrible and where you're great, and lean in and try to get better, but do not hide from that data whatsoever, and then get going, which is just like aggregated marginal gains, man. Everything you do to make yourself better is going to be fantastic. And if you get on that kind of journey, I just think you can do transformational things. You can build teams, but it will take time. They will not believe you in the beginning. But step after step after step, people start coming out from behind the trees, from behind the barriers, behind this and that, and they're going to be willing to lean in. But you better be worthy of that if they're going to lean into that, because again, I go back to this idea that a lot of people have been heartbroken in the last like 2-3 decades, and this is radically noble work, and if we do it more effectively, great stuff can happen. But it's going to take a village of people kind of doing it together, and every tool and technique and technology we can bring to bear.
Well, I appreciate each of you being here. I appreciate the roles that you're serving in your institutions, for sharing with us and also for impacting our future. The work, it is noble work, and also in a place that many will not take on. So thank you for being worthy and trustworthy and giving us something to believe in.
Thank you.